to be king!
What's up, gentlemen? Welcome back to the War Room. Today, before I go into the content, I want to once again give thanks and show my appreciation for those of you who watch these videos. It's become pretty abundantly clear that the powers that control this system have done a really good job making sure that the content that's available on my channel is extremely hard to find. I've had a couple of friends in the last couple of months ask me, about where to find my channel, and they've had a hard time finding it outside of going directly to video titles. That's the only way they can find it. And I've also had a couple of messages of people being unsubscribed and comments deleted, and it's obvious that there's powers that are beyond my control, my influence, that are cock blocking this. And so I'm very thankful for those of you who find your way to this content, consume, and appreciate what I'm trying to do here. So to you guys, thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much. You are why I'm doing this. Thank you and shout out to my dude, 2 Wheels Forever. I'm not gonna say your name on this because you would have put your name on your title if that's what you wanted. But I appreciate your input and your support, bro, more than you know. You are one of the guys that has kept me moving forward, and the article that you submitted has found its way on this video. So this is shout out to you, bro. Thank you for this. My topic today is Peter Pans, and the article that 2 Wheels sent me, it's kind of funny how the content that I create works, because I don't sit down and create a blueprint for what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to entertain anyone. I'm not trying to put on a entertainment show or anything like that. What I do is whenever I receive a word or a message or a powerful movement in my soul from what I'm observing in the world, that's when I speak my mind. And sometimes that is a process that is jumped off by a specific occurrence. In this case, 2 Wheels sent me this article, and it's about a FedEx gunman, a young kid who wanted to demonstrate his masculinity, and he did so by going into the place where he worked and shooting up a bunch of people. The kid was only 19 years old, and he shot 8 people. He killed 8 people and injured several other people, and then he killed himself. And from what the story says, is the guy's only motivation, his inspiration, was that he wanted to demonstrate his masculinity, his willingness to take a life. And I saw that, and it's tragic. A lot of people lost their lives, and this kid, this young boy, when you look at it, you look at this picture of him, you can tell that this was a broken little man. And I find myself curious to know what his story is, what led this kid to this point. And I would bet money that either he's the product of a single mother or a beta father. It's most likely the single mother, though. And so after I read this article, I went to work, and it started playing out in my mind, and that started highlighting certain things that happened throughout the course of that day, in the last few days. Well, when I went to work, I talked to one of my clients, and he's one of the guys I'm really working on trying to to get him his backbone straightened out and stabilized, because he's a very soft marshmallow man, and he finds a lot of pride in being a walking mat for the women in his life, and there's only women in his life. He's got 2 daughters and a demanding wife, and he's a shell of a man. And the things that bring pride to him, oftentimes funny to me. They're odd to me, because I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do these things. In this instance, he was, cheerfully telling me about having to buy 4 new tires and getting a tune-up on his daughter's car. Bro, as he's telling the story, I stopped listening to what he was saying, and I went through my memory files, and my memory served me correct. She had just 2 years prior gotten married, and was going on this great adventure. She was pregnant, and so her and her boyfriend were getting married, and when he told me that, I was dumbfounded at his joy, because there were children. They were children who made stupid fucking choices, and they were now solidifying that by pretending to be adults and getting married. And I am who I am, and I told him this is definitely not going to end well. You're going to burden that whole thing. That's going to fall on you. And like marshmallow men do, he overlooked that and got lost in the joy of all of the feminine planning and all that. And fast forward 2-3 years later, he's in the same space, proud of himself for buying tires for his daughter. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't see anything wrong in doing things for your children. That's what we do as parents. That's what we're tasked with. That's whether you want them or not. That's, you make a decision to bring a child into this world. That's the fee. And so I'm not knocking him for doing for his daughter, but where I found the irony is that she's married. He gave his daughter to this man in a marriage ceremony, which means she's now your fucking problem, and or responsibility for those of you with the sentimental heart. But I am who I am, and so I asked him, why are you so fucking happy in doing this? I get that you're proud of yourself, that you have the means to do it, but she's married, and the whole purpose of being married is to be an adult. And the problem, the thing that makes this even more spicy, is that she's pregnant again. So there's another child coming. They're fiscally irresponsible, and the relationship is escalated to violence. And I looked at this whole situation, and I looked at it, like trying to dissect the whole thing, understand it. His feelings didn't matter, her feelings didn't matter, the other kids' feelings didn't. How the fuck does this happen? And so, that process cascaded after, I read this FedEx article, and then the final blow was another one of my clients who is a severe work in progress. And this guy is mid-20s, very lost. And I know all the reasons why this kid is lost, and he knows. He's articulate enough to know that his upbringing put him in a disadvantaged position. His reactions to things in life, have led to him being incarcerated for years of his life. He understands these things, but yet and still, he still lacks the discipline and the self-control to be a man. And I listened. He came into the gym, the same day, and told me the story. And the story that he was telling was the typical, meathead story about this dude did this and I was about to do that and all this shit. And he was trying to be impressive to me. He was trying to say all this tough guy shit you know, about how he was about to do this. Everybody's about to do some shit. I would have done this. I don't like that shit. You either do it or you don't. You're not about to do a fucking thing. And so he tells me the story, and I ask him, do you think that reaction, the story that you told me, do you think that's man shit? And his face flushed. He was confused because in our culture, we have mistaken bullies with alpha males. Like we've mistaken real strength with this fake bravado bullshit. We've mistaken things and flipped them inside out. And I knew exactly where he was coming from. And I asked him, is that the response of a man? And he didn't understand what I was saying. He was like, yeah, man, this dude disrespected me. I was like, the disrespect that you felt, did he touch you? Did he do? There was no physical, there was no really engagement. It was his interpretation. He interpreted the circumstance that he was so irate about like a little boy. He threw a tantrum to the point where he was willing, in theory, about to do some shit that would have landed his ass right back in prison. And you know, when I brought that to his attention, he never really thought about it that way. The reaction popping off in the world that he grew up in, that's what you do. When you get disrespected, you react with overwhelming force. But the problem is when you're in the penitentiary, it's way different than the free world. Somebody might accidentally step on your foot in the free world because something drastic and terrible happened in their lives. They didn't even see your foot. And if you interpret that and read that situation with the same reaction that you would to a pecker wood standing on, you know, stepping on your foot in the chow line, you're a fucking idiot. You're not thinking correctly. You're using a hammer when you need a screwdriver. And so, you know, I'm trying to work with this kid, but the real angle is the fact that he wants to be a fighter. He wants to try to enter into the octagon and fight. And I won't give him access to my coaches. I won't give him access to my time and attention as a fighter until he can show me that he's disciplined as a man. Because this Peter Pan, this little boy mentality that we have, it's fucked our society up. The culture, the new masculinity is toxic, 100%. It became toxic when men started listening to women and beta males. But what we have today is generation after generation of weak Peter Pan, little boys and grown men that they're betas. And when I look across the space of the manosphere and all of the problematic areas, that's what I've come to see. The problem, the thing that's always stuck in my stomach from what I've seen, was the biggest platforms in this space are weak men taking advantage of weak men. And that's angered me because my agenda is to make men not weak. I want a country of strong men that live up to the reputation that the United States is supposed to have. We're supposed to be a strong nation of strong men, but we don't have that. What we have is a nation full of pussies. We've got a nation full of pretty boy pussies posturing up with fake muscles that don't do shit but look good in tight shirts and tight pants. We've got a bunch of beta males leading the way, and the sheep follow them blindly because they hope to get something that's really not even worth trying to attain. You see, the culmination of all of these things, ending with this fake bravado, this fake machismo that came with the youngster. We have a culture of Peter Pans. We got a bunch of little boys desperately trying to find what it means to be men. And the swing it goes drastic. You've got on the far right end, you've got the young thug that thinks that to be a man is to shoot a bunch of people up. That's cowardice. to start a fight immediately when you get into your emotions. That's lack of self-control. That's lack of emotional discipline. That's feminine shit. And what we've got is a bunch of reactionary, feminized men that are doing their best to find a way up to the mountain of manhood. We've got a bunch of Peter Pans. We got a bunch of video game playing, fashion sense having, sissy, penny waist boys pretending to be men. Many of them still living at home with their mama. But the thing that really, really, really made me notice that we're living in a country full of Peter Pan pussies wasn't the men. It wasn't the examples of the weak men. It was the women. I'd been off of Instagram for a while, but since I started this sandbag business, I've decided to use these platforms for business. And I got back on the Instagram page for my gym and started going through the feed. And what I noticed that made a light go off was the women. The women in our culture have become worthless shells of what they should have been. And what we've got now, what is the most sought after thing according to OnlyFans and the place where these harlots make their money? These women are Tinkerbells. They're not real women. They're not like Wendy and Peter Pan. Wendy was a real woman. She was a real girl. That was a real relationship. But what Peter Pan wanted to do is he wanted to run away and be a little boy. He wanted to stay young, be the king of the Lost Boys. He wanted to be the #1 Instagram, YouTube content creator with all the flash and the glitz and be attached to the most popular Tinkerbell. That's what we have. Our society is full of childish, simpish people. The women that are the loudest, the most visible are fucking Tinkerbells. And the men, the flocks, the sea of men that give these women unlimited time, attention, money are Peter Pans. And when you look at the red pill space, I think this is one of the things, it puts a very clear perspective and a bright light on the thing that makes me the most sick about the content created for men under the guise of helping men. And what we've got is a bunch of Peter Pan, weak, bitch-made dudes taking advantage of others that are just like that. It's so much harder to look at life and take responsibility for the only thing that you really have control over, and that's you. It's harder to do that than it is to look at the other side and say, it's all their fault. That goes for men and women. But I don't give a shit about what happened. I don't care about the woman side of this. Women have already had way too much attention. It's time for men to stand up and tell them to shut the fuck up and sit down. They've ruined our country. They've ruined our culture. But it's not their fault alone. The only reason why they've been able to do that is because of the fucking Peter Pans. And so, like I tell the men that come into my space, all of us, I don't give a shit who it is, all of us have an area in our life where we're showing up like Peter Pan. All of us. If we didn't, we wouldn't be here. If you didn't have that hole, you wouldn't be listening to me talk. So let's just get that clear right now. All of us show up in our life like Peter Pan somewhere. All of us could do something better, but we're choosing not to. We're choosing to go the other way and stay a little boy. Whether it be your physicality, your fiscal responsibility, your personal relationships, the way you handle yourself, the way you just see life. There's somewhere in your aura, in your arena, your sphere of influence, that you're leaking your manhood. There's some dragon in your life that you're running from. And the time, the Father Time is in that dragon's belly chasing you. And you can't run forever, because eventually you will die. We will all die. The important part is how we choose to live. My whole goal is to give you something to look at and give you a tool with which to do something about it. Here's the tool. Wherever you're leaking, wherever you're lacking, wherever you're slacking, whatever your word is, wherever you're falling short, whatever your dragon, whatever your monster is, whatever you're procrastinating from, whatever you're running from, stop running. Stop putting it off. Stop wasting time running from what you are eventually going to have to turn and face. Turn and face it. Turn and face it. Face the dragon. Slay the dragon. Because in every story that we have dragons, behind the dragon is what you truly want. And only when you dispatch of that monster that you run from will you ever stop being a Peter Pan in that area of your life. One of my subs, Son of the Republic, sent me a personal message the other day, and he told me that in spite of my passion, what I was doing, that he feared that I was wasting my time. And he recommended that I grab my fiddle and get to the top of the hill and just play it out like Nero did as Rome burned. I think he might be right. I think he might be right. But I won't run to the hilltop. I'm going to stay right down here on ground level and do battle right here and die on the front lines fighting for you men, with you men. I got you 6. Let's turn around and face that fucking dragon. Out.